Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Tell Me Everything Fraud Girl Fridays. I'm your host, Danielle Spinelli. Today, I have Dale Prax with us with Freight Validate. If you do not already follow him on LinkedIn, I highly suggest it. He has tons of content all the time. But the first moment I ever met Dale, which I met him at the Broker Carrier Summit, actually in Kansas City, first time I ever met him. And basically, his knowledge base on laws is just really next level. And I think at the end of the day, we need to fix things for fraud as much as I hate to even have a government into everything, but as in a way where it is black and white. There's so much gray area in logistics with everything else that we do. Let's at least let the FMCSAs, and if there is a crime being committed, have that black and white paperwork so we can get some things actually accomplished. There's more stricter rules. If you do commit a crime, there's stricter punishments. Because right now they're just getting locked up and then coming right back out doing it again. So anyways, I wanted Dale to come on because he went to the TIA policy forum there in DC. I was not able to go, super bummed about that, but got to see all those people from TIA, Dora, Daniel Hoff, and I know I'm forgetting other people, but anyways, those two and others from TIA, and then talk to different congressmen, senators, representatives to really present our case in logistics. If you're not already doing this on your own city level, county level, state level, whatever, you need to be doing something that's on my vision board for this year. So it should be in yours too. I actually will be working on getting some content out on how you can do that. So that will be coming soon. Anyways, let's jump into this episode with Dale and kind of learn more about what happened at the policy forum. All right. Awesome, Dale. Thanks for coming on Fraud Girl Friday. Do a little bit of an intro on yourself. I'm sure everybody's seen you on LinkedIn and done all the things. Intro yourself, talk about Freight Validate, and then let's jump into what we really are. Both of us are very passionate about the policy forum, FMCSA changes, but do a quick intro.
Yeah. Okay. My name is Dale Prax. I've been in this industry for I'm going on 33 years. I started as a freight forwarder. I learned that kind of deal, and I realized that we could make just as much money or more money putting freight on trucks rather than airplanes. So I started in the expedite industry, sprinter vans, straight trucks, and all those kind of things. Then I got into where I owned with a couple other guys, 65 trucks. I had a fleet for a while. Then I went strictly into brokerage after we sold that off. And I've been a broker now for the last, 20 some years. I planned on retiring about 3 years ago, but I saw fraud was so bad that, I just felt I had to give something back to an industry that's paid for me and my wife to raise 7 kids over the last 40 years. I owe something back to that because the industry's taking such good care of me. And I saw that there were a lot of different vetting platforms out there. And I thought that could be tightened up a little bit because a lot of companies that start in tech, I think they do something opposite of Steve Jobs said to do in 1997. When he said, let's start with the customer and work backwards to technology.
Yeah.
Too many technology and try and shove it down the customer's throat. And I think that doesn't work. And that's what I want to try and avoid and try and do something a little different with our. So I started Freight Validate.
Yeah. And my care portal is integrated with Freight Validate it's been over a year now, year and 2 months.
Year and 2 months.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been a cool partnership and fun working with you. Obviously you and me have traveled all of those things and done all the talks, and you've been awesome and letting me be a part of some speaking things that you're part of. But yeah, so you had the chance to go to the TIA policy forum. My daughter had her birthday, so I could not go. I was super devastated, honestly, because I really wanted to go to this. And this is the 1 year I actually got a chance, because usually Jay or Tom goes. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I wanted to go, but I want you to do a kind of a recap of what exactly happened. We were just talking prior to me hitting record about how FMCSA really needs to be the ones to change a lot of things. And I think the changes that they've made, I think I've told you this before. I've been on other shows talking about this in my show, that I think nowadays a brand new carrier is almost safer than a existing carrier because they've had that vetting, with the pictures of facial recognitions and stuff. So we almost kind of need to reshift the way we're thinking of things. But I think the new policies and stuff coming through will make even a bigger impact. So anyways, if you'll just kind of give your whole spiel on what all you've learned and dive in.
Yeah, I think that the TIA policy forum is it's my first time going, and I wish I'd been going for the last 15 years. Because it really gives a chance for congressmen, their staffers, delegation to hear from the constituents that vote for them what our needs are. and gets them to understand what's really going on. And I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago, that if you went to talk to a senator or a representative or a legislative liaison or assistant, they didn't know what a broker was. But we have made a lot of noise. And I think that the other thing is social media has helped that too, because those people are on Twitter. Those congressmen and folks are on Twitter. We've seen Sean Duffy's on Twitter. Obviously, a lot of things have happened. We're seeing that, getting in front of these senators and congressmen, the delegation, even their staffers, when the senators may be out voting or something, we got separated into our own states, right? So my main house is in Tennessee. So I got to meet with the Tennessee delegation, met with also the house from Kentucky. But we got to go and talk to them about what happens in our state, how it affects us personally. And the one thing that I think was really prevalent throughout the whole couple of days we were in Washington, D.C., is that I think everybody agrees we don't need more regulations. Drivers go through enough already. Brokers go through enough already. We don't need new regulations, but we do need to enforce the regulations that are on the books. MAP 21's been signed since 2012. We still aren't training brokers before they get their authority. That was a clear law, right? We still aren't doing things like imminent hazard out of service orders when people are just so bad they shouldn't be on the highways, right? Yeah. And, in 2000, the time frame for 5-year period from 2010 to 2015, the agency issued over 120 imminent danger out of service orders. In the last 5 years, they've that was a 5-year period. In the last 10 years, they've issued 30. The number of accidents have not gone down.
No, it's gone up.
So, right. So those are things we want to talk to them about. And the good news is that they're listening. Finally, I think that the Congress folks are listening. I think that they see that there's problems. They see that fraud contributes directly to safety on the highways.
Good.
If you look at 70% of the accidents that are fatalities are connected to a fraudulent person. And same goes with cargo theft. There's obviously strategic cargo theft and there's straight cargo theft. Straight cargo theft is I'm going to go into the truck stop, cut the lock, and take all the stuff and load my pickup and leave. Then there's strategic, which starts with fraud. Corruption starting to the cause it happens. One thing I thought was kind of cool out of the Tennessee delegation, the staffer for Michelle, the senator from Tennessee, Blackburn, her legislative staffer has a bunch of friends that work at Steam Logistics, some friends that work at Covenant. So when they go out and talk in Chattanooga, Tennessee, what do kids that are 25, 30 years old talk about when they go to the bar? Freight, right? So he's in with all of his friends. And so he's able to take that information back to his boss, the senator, and say, this is how it's affecting my friends. And they're in this business. And she listens. She's supported some of that legislation. When I told him that I thought that one way to stop fraud is by requiring a transportation workers identification credential for anybody that's got 5% or more equity ownership in a company, he just wrote that down and said, give me your card because she's going to love that. Right. Yeah. So hopefully we can get that thing going because that'll stop a lot of fraud. I think that a TWIC card, it really would do a lot of good because a person has to be there in person. They have to put their fingerprints down. They have to do facial recognition. They have to do a Homeland Security background check. We aren't going to get people coming in to submit to that and own 15 MC numbers because one TWIC card, one MC number, unless there's a waiver for it. So I was very encouraged. I think that the other thing, and I'm going to just keep being long-winded because I like talking about it and passing. I think that the TIA did such a great job that they got us in there. It was 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock, 7 in the morning till 9 o'clock. And it was like, go after. We got talks from Senator Fisher, who's the sponsor of HR 8. She's the sponsor writer of the Senate side of HR 880, which is 337. The security and giving the folks back, the FMCSA back the authority to impose civil penalties. I'm sorry?
Is it the Corco one or the other one?
That's a separate one. This is the Household Goods Security and Fraud Act. Orca's more about the insurance or the cargo theft side of it. Both are very important initiatives, and we have a lot of support. One of the House Representatives members from Tennessee is actually one of the signers of the sponsors of that bill, and they're all behind it. And it's bipartisan. So the Democrats and Republicans both agree that there's a problem. Right. And so they're trying to fast track that through. I think that I'll go back really quickly to TIA, how they made it so that we had enough time to be with the senator or the congressman or their liaison, and we had enough time to get to the next one and talk to them. So they set up the schedule just perfectly so we could just talk to as many people as we could. And we get delegations from every state pretty much coming in. They're talking to all of their folks at the same time. Of course, those Congress folks, lawmakers are going to get together and talk and say, what did you go through today? And it's really going to come out. I couldn't say enough about how that whole thing worked. It was just incredible. I think it was great.
Well, I think that's our voices, I think a lot of times because of the news and like kind of like the persona of like fake news and our votes don't matter, like that whole, I guess, thing that's happened with news. I think a lot of us kind of feel like our voices don't really matter. And I think TIA does a great job of making it where we do matter. And especially in logistics, like it's kind of an unheard, it's such a big industry, but it's like a silent industry when it comes to the masses. Like nobody really thinks about how this gets on the shelves. They're just buying it from the shelves. But TIA does a great job of making it where it is in people's faces. And like you said, I think the social media, all of us in logistics are over here screaming for help, like help us. We're all struggling. And so no, I think I'm really thankful that TIA puts that together, and they have people on the ground and like on the hill. Like I'll talk to Daniel Hoff over there, I'll talk to Dora, and both of them like, yeah, I'm right here. Yeah, I'm right here. And I talked to so-and-so and I lobby this, and they know how the whole lobbying works. Like I wouldn't know how to even try to help with that.
Right. And, and the thing about lobbying too, when you're in the halls of Congress, when we get out, there's somebody else selling coffee coming behind us. There's somebody else. So the list is a lot of things. Luckily, they have a lot of staffers that kind of key on certain areas like transportation or whatever those areas are. So I think that's really cool. Think that, there's one thing that's like lobbying and sending your trade organization in there to talk to senators and all those kind of things. But I think senators and lawmakers want to hear from constituents. Right. So we didn't go there and talk about policy. We talk about how policy affects us.
Yeah.
That's what they want to hear. And that's what we gave them, because it does affect every one of us. Anytime there's a cargo theft, the price of goods go up, the price of insurance goes up, all those things happen. It affects the lawmakers know it affects their constituents.
Yeah. It affects everything we buy. I mean, I think last report I heard was like 20% added to goods due to basically fraud and cargo theft, because it adds so much on every part of the transportation costs.
And we take that 20% to add it on to about 35% of all costs of goods are transportation related. Now we're at a 50% increase.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's wild. And the Corco one, that one's my favorite one, because I'm really excited about them having like a centralized database, almost like how I hate that even like FBI, CIA, they don't talk to each other, but something where like, let's all have something in there where we're like, hey, this is this guy. He did this in this state and this in this state. Nothing is in one state. These guys are all over the place. Right. They're not, for a while it was the hot spot areas: California, Texas, Illinois, Georgia, Florida, New Jersey. Now it is literally anywhere that has any type of manufacturing that does somewhat high value. And that's all over the U.S. I mean, that's in Montana. I mean, it's literally everywhere. So it's.
I'll give you some good news about that. During one of the meetings, and I forget which state it is, I think it was Colorado, but one of the members of our delegation within the TIA, a very senior member in our organization, but I'm not going to speak for him because he's going to be able to announce this later on when this all happens. He was meeting with the senator, and the senator said, hey, I have to go to the Hill to vote. I have to go down and vote. So they take the train underground, and, here's my card. We'll talk about it later, right? So he leaves to go vote. About 20 minutes later, the TIA folks, the delegation is walking down. The train's coming back, and he's on, and he waved them down and said, hey, go back there. I got some news for you. They went back and met the beginning of the train. He said, I talked to some of my other colleagues in the Senate, and we're going to make this happen. It's called the FBI Freight Fraud Task Force, where the FBI will get notified and they would contact local police and say, this is our jurisdiction, investigate this thing now and get back to us. And they really want to put something like that together. So when we get somebody that flags somebody in our delegation down, says, we're going to work on this thing and we've got some support. And, getting something to the House only takes 291 votes out of the 435 to kind of fast track those kind of bills through. Right. In other words, it's a voice vote. If it means enough to both sides of the aisle, we just vote on it right now and get it out. And so that's kind of encouraging. You see something happen that quick.
I think the biggest trick with that is going to be like right now, for instance, you can call whoever, but it's like getting everybody educated on it. And I hope even if because as you know, there's plenty of laws out there that actually do the right things, but it's them actually implementing it. That's always been the biggest struggle. I know you work really heavy with FMCSA and, making change, like you helped really change the virtual address part being detected. And it's like, that's always enforce it. If you have the power to do it, you just start doing it.
Here's something I said to every single senator, congressman, or aide that I spoke to. Regulations without enforcement are suggestions. So we're just suggesting you do the right thing, right? We got to get past that. We need to put money back into, the new, the surface transportation Revitalization Act comes out every 5 years or so. It's due fiscal year 26 again. And a lot of the lawmakers had to have their policy profile or their policy, the most important parts of those things in by this Friday. So they're already acting on that. And one of the things that we're asking for is put more money into enforcement. Put that in the bill so we get more money for enforcement. We can have all the laws we want, but if they're not followed, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
So
yeah, exactly. Whenever I talk to CHP, I was like, how do we make it where, because I'm like, why do all the rest of the world not even know how to handle this? Like, why do I keep calling different places? And one of the things that they said was like, well, they've never been trained on even what to do. And I'm like, well, how do we get them training? And he was saying, even having like going up to your local city hall, like what they did in California is they went up to their city hall saying, please add $1 to CDL licenses, all of that money of that dollar towards the cargo theft task force that they have at CHP, but they have it in other states too, but just as an example. And that money is what supports their team. And so it's something little like that, and that's something any of us can do, because like you said, it's them getting educated, it's them enforcing it. But a lot of that is like resources, money, and, with a bunch of cutting that they've done within the government, I think it's something like that too, that we all as an industry kind of needs to get together. And
there's a couple of initiatives we're working on, and I've been speaking with Dan Lindsay at the Broker Carrier Summit, and we want to set up an education like we do like your Broker Carrier Summit, but let's have a education, 4 times a year at every corner of the country, and let's get lawmakers together at their precinct and invite the other state patrol officers, the other commercial motor vehicle officers to get together and say, let's talk about fraud. Let's talk about things you can find. And I was fortunate enough to have a conversation about 3 weeks ago with the incoming administrator for the Federal Motor Carrier State Administration, Eric Bars. And one of the things that I spoke to him about, other than the TWIC thing, I think everybody should have a TWIC card to own a trucking company or to apply for authority. One of the things we spoke about is I think a lot of times we step over dimes to pick up pennies. So like when we pull over a truck, we're looking to make sure his mud flaps are good, his marker lights are right, and his tires are not flat. But we don't know about anything about the company he works for.
right.
Like, keying on that driver. So like I told him, imagine if your state patrol officer had freight validate and his laptop. Pull the guy over, check his hours of service, all those things, but let's look up the company. They work out of a post office box. So now we're going to contact from there, the state DOT office up to FMCSA and say, you need to look at this company, give them 10 days to fix themselves. Then go on to the next car you're going to pull over.
No, I think that's a great point. Like even like when you're vetting, like I talk to people about vetting all the time. Vetting is not just the carrier level, it is the driver level that sometimes there really is just a bad apple on a large fleet. Like that does happen. And so I think it just like what you said, kind of like the opposite of what officers are doing, where they're in the driver level, they need to move up. We're on the carrier level, we need to move down to the driver. Yeah. So I think there's a big gap between the two. Right. And it's how do we make it where what's difficult, especially as a broker, and you know this from being a broker, is obviously you can say, like I was talking to someone about the English proficiency stuff, and I'm like, how in the world would we ever, as a broker, be able to enforce that? All they're going to do is hand their phone to their dispatcher and say, oh, he's the driver, and then you would never know. So some of that stuff is like the shippers are going to have to get involved and a little bit more enforcement in there. But I think even just the transparency in what DOT is stopping and pulling over drivers and doing those assessments, if they were to even check a little bit further into like, is the bills matching, like taking a little bit deeper look at the BOLs, and that's education. Yep. Knowing what a BOL really means, what it does, what you're looking at, and then saying like, hey, does this match the freight that I'm seeing, if they're checking the actual truck. But yeah, I know Dan asked me to help with that education piece too for the officers. And I cannot stress that enough. I think that they want, it's not like they don't want to help. And like the CHP guys, they'll say, my favorite part of my job is when I get a call saying, hey, I know my load's stolen. This is where he's at. Go get it. They're like, let's like mount up, let's go get them. They love that. So it's not that they don't want to help. They don't know how.
And I think one of the things that you've always really impressed me by is your training of the folks, not just showing about your technology and what My Carrier Portal does and all those kind of things. But we have to remember, what if the electricity goes out? What if the My Carrier Portal goes down? I mean, just the other day, FMCSA's API database went down. Yeah. We have to have people knowing that without that crutch, without that technology, you still have to know how to vet somebody. Get them on the phone, ask them the right questions, the same questions that your risk assessment says, right? Memorize those things and say, okay, if My Carrier Portal goes down, how long have you been in business? all the questions that you are very good about asking those folks in your training periods, those are the questions that we need to, let's put a blindfold on these folks and let's vet 10 carriers in a training session without my carrier portal and see how much you can do.
You know, it's funny you bring that up. So I think having those platforms and you're getting a bird's eye view of things, but it's almost like you want the carrier to be able to tell you that back. Like, how many times have you had a call come in from somebody, you're like, hey, what's your MC? They're like, oh, hold on a second. They're like, well, I'm like, is this your first day? Like that, you should know that by heart. That's you know, maybe not your DOT number, but you should know your MC number. So that to me is like flag number one. But I mean, like I was young and dumb and I had a fake ID. And I remember studying this fake ID left and right. Like I wanted to know the address. Like I had the birthday so that if I got stopped trying to get into wherever, that if they asked me what my address was, oh, I'm prepared. And it's like, it's that simple of a thing sometimes where it's like, yeah. How long have you guys been in business? Oh, where are you out of again? What's the weather like? Like little tiny things like that. If they can't even answer that, I promise you, they're not who they say they are.
Yeah. Just before I got on this call, I got a call from a carrier who said, hey, I'm not validated on Freight Validate or my carrier portal. The broker won't let me sign on. Okay. So I look him up and, you know, I'm kind of like a lawyer, right? I know the answer to the question before I ask it. Kind of like you're saying, you kind of got to know if they stumble. So this particular guy, it was because of a virtual office. He worked out of a Staples store somewhere. And so I said, okay, what is your address? I always ask, what is your principal place of business address listed with the FMCSA? Now, this is a place where your driver qualification records are kept, your maintenance records are kept, and where your safety folks go to work every day. That's what CFR 49 says, right? So he said, Columbus, Ohio. Okay, what address in Columbus, Ohio? I don't know. I have to ask. I said, okay, do you know what street it is? And then I said, well, before you even ask, where are you right now?
Right.
He said, I'm in Ohio. What city? I want to know exactly where you're standing because the telephone caller ID and BOIP shows that you're not in Ohio. He says, let me check with my boss. He comes back and says, USA.
Oh my God.
I'm in USA.
It's funny because I get asked all the time too. I'm like, well, if it's not if the IP address comes from a different country, does that mean that they're bad? Like what do you do? Right. And that is a difficult thing to answer. And I honestly have not found the magic sauce on what you would say or do from there. But for me, it is where you simply ask, like, hey, where are you based out of? And they're like, oh, well, actually, I work remote. I'm over here. Whenever they are upfront about being overseas, then I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll consider work with you. But whenever you're hiding and you can't answer questions, like I got some issues.
My first thing I do when I was a broker is if they were from IP address overseas, they went through facial recognition verification. So when he said he's in Pittsburgh and I saw he was in Pakistan, he's not going to get my note.
Same thing with VIN verification. I just had one the other day where the guy was in Taiwan and everything matched, but the VIN belonged to the carrier, but he took the picture in Taiwan. I'm like, cool that you have a truck over there that belongs to your insurance, but that is not the truck that I need.
Yeah, we can't paint fraud with a broad brush. Just because someone works overseas, they could be at HubTech in Colombia. That doesn't mean anything's bad. So we can't just paint a broad brush. We just have to get details. We have to say, and the real kicker is if they lie to me and say where they are and they're really not, even if they are legit, doesn't work because they're going to lie about something later, right? And same goes with like people say, oh, he's got his DOT numbers pasted on his door with duct tape. Well, that's not illegal in itself because his other truck could have broken down. He's at the side of the road. He's got to put a DOT number on it for the other truck that he just rented from Penske or whatever the case is. So we can't paint it with a broad stroke of brush. Now where that is different is if you're dealing with DOD freight. Like if you're using signature and tally a DOT freight where you have to have a chain of custody. You cannot trip lease that load. You can't broker it. It has to be on your truck with your permanent marker on the side of your door, all those kind of things. Mm-hmm. And if you think for 1 minute that fraud's bad in the real world where we work, you should see it in the DOD. Just last week, I was working with a company out of Georgia who's a big DOD provider, and we found a company that had one truck, was Ford F-150 pickup and a trailer. The DOD gave him 32 loads from southern Georgia to northern Florida, 27 miles. They didn't put it out for bid. They gave him $2,000 a load for 32 loads. Had to be on his truck. These were step deck loads. Two of the loads, one load they paid him $15,000, one $7,000, the rest were $2,000. That's a lot of money. He posted those loads on a load board. So he broke every single rule. And the sad part about it is the DOT doesn't even, those transportation management officers don't even look at DOT numbers, MC numbers. They look at SCAP codes. And that's how they determine if the guy's going to go. So just because you lose your DOT number, your MC number, It doesn't cancel your SCAT code. The only way to cancel it is to either cancel it or don't pay for it. So they're giving loads to people. The DoD is giving loads to people that don't even have operating authority.
Well, if somebody does have the stuff taped on the side of their truck, I mean, really at that point, that's when it's like, hey, what is this a leased on truck? Like, why is this even happening? Those are the type of, like, that's what I always say to ask, right?
Let me see it. Let me see a copy of the lease, Mr. Driver. Oh, I don't have one. Well, the law says you have to carry a lease with you, right? So let me see it. And then when I get a copy of the lease, I look at 49 CFR to see if it's a legitimate lease. And then, I always tell, when I was a broker, I would say, just like a police officer, when you get pulled over by a police officer, what do they say? License, insurance, registration, right? So the shipper would ask for those three things. Okay, we got a cab card. Does it match the VIN? Does that match the truck? We got the insurance. Does that match the COI? We got his license. Does that match your face that we just sent for facial recognition verification? Those three documents are the most important documents anybody could ask for.
You're right. And so like with the VIN verification, not to like plug MCP, but the VIN verification with MCP, for instance, like I even tell people just forward that email that you get back to your shipper and be like, hey, does this look like the truck? And then this is the VIN? Will you look? Because really at the end of the day, it's the VIN that is the key to everything, not just what they paint inside their truck.
Yeah, you can't duct tape a VIN on a truck. It's either there or it's not. It's just, and that's why I think your VIN verification and my facial recognition verification, you can have 10,000 MC numbers, but that's only got one VIN and your face only has one face.
Right. And yeah, exactly. And even like dispatching services, like even if they are, because that's another thing I know I talked to TIA about, and they're like wanting to get rid of dispatching services or have stricter laws, or I don't think it's really getting rid of, but because I'm like, if the dispatching service does it correctly and they are, because legally they can't, as you already know, but fill out contracts or sign rate sheets on a legal basis.
Like
they can't
money, those
unless they're 1099 W-2 or power of attorney. So if they are those three things, then yeah, you can do it. Like that's part of the things that like we do on our side, like on the back end that we don't really tell customers because we shut down if we see something weird like that. They got to prove it. Like, and I think there's such like so much misinformation that goes out there and stuff like that. That does not mean that they're bad. This is like a one truck stop policy. He's supposed to be covering free and doing accounting while he's trying to drive. He can't. Yeah. He has to have somebody that helps him. Right. If they're doing it correctly and representing the company correctly, you're in the clear. But obviously there's lots of bad actors in dispatching services. I'm not disregarding that because we both know that we've seen that. But anyways.
We don't like new regulation, but I think there is a step we have to come to. Since to be a dispatch service, you have to follow I think there's 6 or 7 rules that say this makes you a dispatch service. Yeah. So we either you can't really regulate that without having regulation, right? You can't say, you promise you're doing all these things right? Is that how we're going to do it? We're going to suggest you do everything right. So I think there maybe needs to be some regulation. I think there needs to be stricter controls on dispatch services. I think that's in the bill 880. I think there also needs to be stricter controls on agents because a lot of times an agent for a big brokerage company, the problem that I've seen throughout my years is a lot of these big companies that hire agents, they don't vet them at all. Their only vetting process is how big their book of business is. Come on in, right? You got a lot of money to bring our company. I think that there should be some vetting of all the agents. I think that companies need to do a better job. And maybe, you can't let companies hide behind what their agent did because they're an independent contractor. If he's hauling freight under your MC number, you have a responsibility for his action.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess how would you vet a broker agent? We almost see like
how I would do it is say that you have to report them and you have to be able to show who they are and they have to have a TWIC card.
So almost that they have like a FMCSA identity.
Yeah. I don't know the real answer. I just know it's something I think it's got to happen. I think that, you have to take responsibility for the people who work for you, even if they're an independent contractor. I don't know how that all will know. I put some more thought into it, but I think there really is a disconnect there.
It's definitely a lot of the even like somebody leaves a company and then that company, that brokerage does a terrible job at either cybersecurity where they don't delete people, the offboarding of people. They won't delete people from months later. And then it's like, well, they got all the keys to your castle and they're doing whatever they want to under your name. And you're just dumb enough to let them really.
Right. They're too big to handle it. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of work to be done, but I mean, I think what we really have to do is start really just getting to the basics, like the registration. Is this guy qualified? Let's really look through all the rules. And I get that the FMCSA is short-staffed, but so is your company, and so is mine. We still have to do our jobs. And if you can't, then ask for help. Ask for more money. Ask for, we've been allowing people to come into our industry for $300, and a VIN number and a BOC thing for how many years? The bar is so low to come into our industry. I mean, for less than $1,500, a broker can be in business in 10 days and not pass a lot of things, right? So, and I always say this thing, and I've talked to some folks in Congress about this. In the state of Tennessee, to get your barber's license, you need to go through 1,100 hours of training. You have to go to school. You have to do all this kind of stuff, take an 8-hour test and all these kind of things, right? To get a driver's, an MC number, you need $300, could be on a stolen Visa gift card, a VIN number that you can see on eBay that's for sale for a truck, and a crooked insurance company to give you a surety bond or if you're a carrier, get insurance. So do we really care more about bad haircuts or safety on our highways?
Right. I know you've said that. I've heard you say that before, and it's totally true. Like you work with Hammered a lot in FMCSA. Like I was mentioning in the very beginning, I do think that the new carriers coming on board are almost, I don't want to say safer, like they're a safe bet, but it is more of like okay, at least I know exactly who I'm dealing with instead of like this mystery of whatever. Now, I still think they need vetting, and obviously they're new, and let's make sure that this is a driver that's actually driven. But I think they're more of a trusted. I think they're more trusted than ever. Like that rule of like, I won't hire you because you haven't hit 90 days. I think that should be completely eliminated now. If anything, it should be where it's a review, and then it's just looking into, verifying them basically at that point.
Yeah, I think, and I've talked to the agency specifically about IDEMIA and the facial recognition piece and everything. The problem that we have is the government wants to be as transparent as they can, saying, here's what we're going to do over the next several months. But what happens sometimes is the bad guys say, okay, let's start at the beginning. Here's what they're going to do by October. So let's get ready for that. And how do we get around this? And I think that maybe they're going to. I think I've heard some rumor that they're going to change the IDEMIA package a little bit, because currently IDEMIA is no different for trucking than it is at the airport. Really quickly, take a picture of your face, take a picture of the ID. Okay, you match, go ahead. Is that really saying who's behind the operation or who is behind the camera for 5 seconds? Yeah. You got to take data. It doesn't hold any data saying who went through it at what time. It doesn't hold their location where they did the procedure. It could be in Serbia and or a person in Pakistan or whatever country could call his cousin in Chicago and say, hey, they got this new rule. Take a picture of your face. And as soon as you do that, could you send me the information and the PIN number so I can go and finish? I don't think it's real. And I think that we really need to start checking, and it's coming in the next couple of iterations, but we need to check information from FMCSA to the Secretary of State, make sure those kind of things match. We need to look at simple things too. And I don't want to bore you too much, but if you look at carriers over the last 21 years since we really started vetting carriers have been vet, and vetted, right? 411, My Carrier Portal, all of us vet the hell out of carriers. Yeah. There's 320,000 or so carriers right now, for hire motor carriers hauling property. Less than 0.1% have bad information, like missing information for contact name, bad email addresses, all these kind of things. On the broker side, there are about 22,000 brokers. 29% have bad information, like no name. There are a bunch of companies that have no name given or not available for their name, or the email address, WTF@FMCSA@AOL.com, telephone number 123456790, or just missing. They don't put anything in at all. And that's omission of a material fact, which means you shouldn't have your authority. So we got to start, if we're going to vet everybody, right? Because there are a lot of bad brokers too. Let's face it, right? Oh, for sure. But brokers don't get vetted because vetting services, truck drivers have enough trouble trying to pay for tires and trying to pay for gas and trying to pay for all these other things. They don't have the money to buy a vetting service like a broker does. Brokers make more money. We haven't given that same opportunity to carriers. I know you and I are working on platforms to make carriers have some access to those brokers too. And I think that's really important. We have to keep it down in price, right? We have to give them a chance to vet. It's the only industry that I know of where owner-operators are lending money to a broker. And the only thing, if I went to a bank and I said, I need to borrow $2,500 for about 30 days, could you lend it to me? Sure. What's your MC number? That doesn't happen, right? Yeah. But it happens in our industry.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think I will say a lot of the vetting platforms, I think, do a decent job at vetting their customers, where I don't know if everybody does it the same way we do, but on our side, like we use Freight Validate to validate our brokers. And like I just turned away a customer today saying, you have a virtual address. They're like, oh, well, that's not that big of a deal. I got my authority. I'm like, they're not getting on our platform. Just show an address. What's the big deal?
Yeah. And when they think it's not a big deal, we can say, well, it's a big enough deal that 100 senators are going to vote on in a couple of days to make it even stronger. So you may want to fix it now. And when people say, oh, I've worked out of a post office box for 6 years and I don't think it's a big deal, whatever the reason is. But if you look that same guy up, there may be 5 bad guys at that same address that share it. You're going to be lumped into them. So get it changed right. Yeah. The problem that we're having now, though, that we're seeing with a lot of vetting companies is that when somebody changes their address, automatically black mark, don't use them. They've changed their information in the last 60 days. Let's verify that they changed it to something right. I have guys that say, yeah, I know I work out of a Staples store, but if I change it, they're not going to let me do business with them. That's if they change it, they should get, this is even a better carrier because he's going from bad to good, right? And we built a bot to help people do that sort of thing to say on our system now it says, yeah, he changed his information, but we verified that it was him that changed it. And here's the reason he changed it.
Yeah. And he's compliant. We asked him to change it because he was not compliant. Because there's a lot of them that you say, hey, you got to change this or you're not going to be compliant. That's why you're getting the red X.
Every day.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. I really wish I was at that policy forum because I really wanted to see the things and talk to all the people. But next year I'm going no matter what. But I do want to do stuff in my state too. So that is on my vision board, literally right over there, is that I'm going to be talking to somebody at some point this year here in Georgia.
Yeah, you are the perfect person to be there because you have that experience and that voice. And plus, you're such a charismatic person that any senator would be stupid not to listen to you.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. I am very thankful for my background. Same with you. You have the same type of background. It's like if you were in the trenches doing all the things, you know what it's like. And I mean, I still hop on the phone. Like today I was at a customer's office and like today I jumped on the phone and like 1 out of 10 calls was a fraud, or at least I suspect them to be a fraudster. They sounded like a fraudster. They pulled up as a fraudster. I don't think that they're legit. 1 out of 10. I mean, that's a lot of phone calls and things to do. So my chair is like totally broken. Anyways, tell everybody how to reach you, how cool Freight Validated.
Yeah, I think we're kind of cool. We're the only one of the only companies that really stresses objective data. Either you're breaking the law or you're not. And I think we brought this up before that says we're like the airport. You have your boarding pass, you have your ID. Okay, that all passes. We know who you are and you should be here. Now you can go to the next step. Let's check your bag. Make sure they don't have 3 ounces more of liquid. And that's where I think my carrier portal comes in really good. Let's start checking what other people are saying about you. Let's see if your VIN's right. All those that's the bag, right? And then you have my carrier portal. Make sure that plane doesn't go off track. Or you have a macro point. Make sure the plane doesn't go off course. So you can reach me. I'm on LinkedIn once in a while. You can maybe catch me there.
All the time, actually. But I love your
or info@freightvalidate.com.
Love it. Well, thanks so much for coming on.
All right. Thanks a lot.